Welcome to Lashback, everyone. I'm Natalyan.
And I'm Phoebe. And this week we're going to be reminiscing about our early clubbing years, like the early ones, in London when we were young and it was the 90s and the clubbing was a new thing. What are your reflections?
Well, I think that, without these clubbing years, and again, we can only talk about London, it really, my memory, and if you do a bit of research on it as well, is about really bringing communities together, different communities, different, diverse communities. And I think that it was really a place where you could congregate and be accepted for whoever you are, whatever you're wearing, whatever lifestyle you have. It was a place where it was just harmonious and also brought about genres of music, right? That's
Yeah, I mean,
my
I,
experience.
I, I always remember I would have been like 19, 20, just moved to London when I first started really getting into clubbing. Although I had friends growing up that would rave in Fields. I think I went once or twice. Like pre-criminal justice bill. And what I remember is I had a friend that I'd see every Friday at this place we went to who was like 45. And it was amazing to have a friend, that sort of intergenerational thing. Like, my God, they're so cool, and yet they're old.
Yeah,
They weren't actually
yeah.
that old. But I think it changed a lot of perspectives. And you're right, the people are there because the government said we're not allowed to gather with this sort of music. So we learn how to gather, and it's a bit like 90s version of the punk movement, anti-establishment,
Yeah.
come together no matter what. Um, and brave new world. And if you think about it back then, economically people were a little bit better off, really.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I don't even know how I did it, but I think I used to go out with little to no money and somehow survive the night, get in, get a cab home. I used to get a cab home by,
But the ticket
saying,
price wouldn't have been that huge either.
no, but you'd
Like
find a
six
way.
quid
You'd
or
find a way.
something.
Yeah, you'd find a way. And I used to, a funny story that I always have, and kind of, I would probably wouldn't do it now, but well, who knows, is that if I was in a really long queue, like a long line, I'd always shout, Dave, Dave,
So you
because
got,
there's always someone called Dave in London.
yeah, or Matt.
And then they look at you, yeah, and you look at them and you just walk to the front. And then people are like, oh, it's fine if your friends are there. You can't push in, but it's fine if your friend's in the line. Right. So you just
But
blag
the
your way
etiquette
through.
of it. I used to go to this place called Plastic People on Oxford Street, which is now I think Crossrail in the Elizabeth line.
Right.
And that was really, really cool. And then there was Whirligig, Shoreditch Town Hall. And then there were the really, really big places like the Ministry of Sound being the first, but then Fabric, which is still going and still
Right.
huge, and Turnmills. But those larger clubs used to sort of, Coco used to do a night as well. They used to really sort of overwhelm me. And Plastic People felt like a little home, and we'd end up going back to someone's house at 4 in
Yeah.
the morning or whatever. And it was just cool.
Always. I mean,
Yeah.
amount of people's houses I've
And
been back
Strawberry
to. I've never
Sundays.
been.
Remember Strawberry Sundays,
Oh,
Vauxhall?
yes. Yes.
Night, 8
Yeah.
a.m. to midday on a Sunday. Like I'd
I
be,
mean, I don't even know if you're allowed now, but there were like 24-hour clubs. I'm not saying there's not any in existence now, and probably, we're in a different part of our lives, but
mm,
there was a lot of things that have been kind of clamped down on now, but there was never any problems that I ever saw. I'm not saying there never was, but, like Fabric, I was always out, and that was, really significant to the rise of electronic music.
yeah.
Um, and but I'd lose my phone every weekend. I'd have a different number every single week because I'd lose my phone.
And not everybody had a phone either. You like you'd agree to meet at whatever, and you'd be there at the time you agree to meet because maybe Bob doesn't have a phone still.
Yeah. And you'd lose your friends, right? I'd always lose my friends, but we had a rule where you'd wait outside. So sometimes I'd be sitting outside on the floor of the club at like, the birds are going tweet, 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 tweet. And you're sitting outside and I'm just waiting for a friend to appear because I spent my whole evening with strangers.
Yeah, you made new friends in the loo. And the
Yes.
tube home on a Sunday morning when normal people are going to church.
Oh, that's like the walk
And
of
I'm still in
shame,
my
right? Or
sister.
walking back. Yeah, or walking back from someone's house and you absolutely look like the night before. They know that you were not wearing that this morning. You didn't get into that attire this morning. You
You
were
see,
walking
London's
back,
still
and
like that. London's still like that, and I always enjoy it if I see a young'un, because I mean, my body doesn't allow
yeah,
me that behaviour really anymore. But like if I'm up to happen to be up early on a Sunday, and I see a young'un in a posh dress or looking all dolled up, or a bloke in a suit, I'm always a little nervous.
mascara smudge,
Because the
mascara
40
smudge.
somethings are even cooler now than the 40 somethings
Yeah,
were in the 90s.
absolutely.
Because we
Well,
were
you
the
bring about
teenagers of
something.
the 90s.
But I used to
Ooh,
look at people, the people that go jogging on a Sunday morning. I used to think,
who
oh,
are they?
I'd love
Yeah,
to
who
be
are
that
they?
person, but
Oh,
I'm
you
still not
don't.
that person.
No, I don't know who those
Never.
people are. They're not my friends. We wouldn't be able to hang out because they'd be going to bed when I'm leaving the house.
Well, this is true.
This is
This is
why.
true. And I don't think, I'm 40 odd now. I'm not going to give everything away, but I, 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 I still think, look, I'm not a raver or anything, but I'm still capable of that. Like where I'll go to I don't like the idea of you hit a certain age. We've had
Yeah.
this kind of discussion before where, that's out of the picture now. No.
I mean, if you look in, different cultures. So if we go to India and like yogis, then you have this
Mm,
whole notion of I can never say it, ecstatic dance, which is total
yeah.
sober raving, allowing your body to dance. There's something very unifying about dancing. And of course, the 90s club culture might have had, um, drinking and whatnot involved as well. But there are,
Mm,
there's quite a lot of opportunities to do that sober, and ancient ways of doing this that are sober and indeed keep us young, because we move our
yeah, I
energy through
agree.
our body. It's what keeps us young. And I do think
Yeah.
music, dance, community, all of these things of coming togetherness is like better than any face cream you're ever going to buy in terms of,
I couldn't agree more.
aging well.
Laughter, singing. Yeah, we've said this with singing, like it does keep you young. I mean, the singers that I know all have really kind of, good looking faces as they're aging. I do think singing's got a lot to do with it, but you're right. Obviously, not being drunk every weekend, that's not good. But if I'm happy and laughing and having a great time with people, because humans are meant to be with other people, then that definitely keeps me young and happy.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I just love congregating with people and listening to music and, dancing on a beach and all of those things. That's not just for the 20-year-olds.
Gosh, no. And in fact,
Definitely
it's
not.
funny. I think maybe we, certainly after COVID, there are some youngins
Yes.
that like now that were at school in lockdown and stuff. We've probably got a responsibility to teach them how to do that, because they don't know
Completely.
how to come together, how to dance, how not to be self-conscious. Everybody's got a phone in their face and they're really conscious of the selfie and always looking
Oh,
at themselves. I'm looking at myself right now on this recording software. Ugh. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like that. We didn't even take photos in the clubs because our phones didn't
no,
do that back then.
no. I've seen clips recently, every now and then as you're doom scrolling or whatever, where, there's a top DJ or an artist or something, and the whole crowd is
I know it's
not
gigs
dancing.
too.
Yeah, not
Gigs as
dancing.
well.
You're just filming. I'm so glad that
Chatting.
wasn't. Yeah, that did not happen when we were, in the 90s and the early 2000s, and that it was
It's
about
not
you were
like
wondering
it
about.
used to be.
No, it's true. I hate to say it, but it's so true. You'd be completely 110% in it. You'd be chatting to randoms. You'd spend an hour in the toilet because you bumped into a girl that you started chatting to, and then you're like best friends, and you give her your number, and like you lose your phone, so you never see him again, but you've had the greatest night of your life, you know.
Or sometimes they
And
can
you
turn
don't.
into proper friends.
Yeah, every now and then you meet someone who you keep in touch with forever. But it was really about, it was such a safe place as well, a safe space. That's my experience. Again, that's not a blanket statement. I'm sure it wasn't always the case in every single scenario, but
Mm.
over generally, even the security on the door were nice people that you bantered with. They were sober and you were like getting a little bit more tipsy, but I'd always have bouncer friends that were, really reasonable, and it was just a beautiful place to be.
I'd be
I felt
interested to
safe.
do some research actually into the promoters and the people that used to put those gigs on. I mean, I was just a punter when I was younger, but it'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it? Because you're right, there was definite a culture in those places where something violent happening or untoward happening was an anomaly, wasn't like
Yes.
this, we're going to the club, but suit up, it's going to be dodgy. Never,
Yeah.
never, something bad happened. It was like, wow, that never happens in these places. And yeah,
Completely.
security, getting down, enjoy, just being that this is about high vibes and good times and um, celebrating and coming together and not caring about the way that we're, yeah, I still carry a lot of those values into my
Me too.
everyday life, even though I might not listen to a lot of house music at home.
Yeah, I mean, we should do an experiment, which is partially an excuse for you and me to maybe spend a couple of weeks going around raves and clubs.
Oh, let's go to Ibiza.
Let's do it.
What do you
Do you
think,
know I've never
listeners?
been?
Do we do a series from Ibiza? Can we put that
That would
on
be
the
amazing.
expenses?
Yeah, of course. If you're listening, let us know if you'd be interested in joining live from Ibiza. I think that we should definitely do something to do with that to see kind of what's different, what's changed, do some interviews and really kind of feel the vibe, see I'm sure there's some wonderful things in the change as well, but what really has changed. And I think that, we can help kind of feed that back as well, you know?
That would be a really good masters in songwriting project.
It would. It would, completely. And you're doing a master's in
I am.
songwriting. I
Yes,
know. You change your topic at the last minute.
I just it's on the brain, isn't it? I'm like, interesting little research project. Maybe we can come together with something there. Write some songs that get people dancing and feeling free and together
That's,
and diverse and cool. That would be wicked.
yeah. The first song I ever wrote was a housey, garagey song. And those that are not from the UK, garage is a genre of music that's predominantly known to the UK. And it's kind of, how do you explain it, Phoebe? How would you explain garage? It's
Gosh,
kind of housey, or it's got more of a poppy verse and chorus, and a full set of verse chorus bridge in it essentially.
these distinctions of this genre normally come down to types of beats or types of instrumentation choices. I I'm not up to speed with that. But yeah, I think you might be right. Song form in terms of
It was only around for a few years, but I mean, it had a big impact in our
I,
generation. The
but it's
90s to
morphed,
early.
morphed, hasn't it? Like there's grime now and all of those
Yeah,
things. I don't really
you had a little
engage
bit of,
with say.
yeah, a bit of British rap MCing, which I do to a lot of my American friends over here, and they're like, "Wow,"
You're great
because
at that on the mic. The words that come
I
out
know.
your mouth. I couldn't improv like that. But here's a question to potentially end with for you, Nat, and also for the listeners. Do we think Nat should write a house album that talks about the connectivity and beautifulness of clubbing culture and how we should bring that back? What do you think?
I think that there's no other answer apart from absolutely, and Nat and Phoebe can be, bringing out a great, album, is a big challenge, but certainly start with a first song. I would be well interested to do that. So I'm a yes.
All right. Answers on a
Let's do
postcard, people. That's very old phrase,
it.
isn't it?
It is. Answers on an email or a reel.
Totally. Comment below. It's nice to see you guys, and we'll be back next week.
Look
And
forward to it, and keep sharing, keep following, share with your friends. Please comment, and we're going to start to, as the year goes on, inviting people to get involved. So we'll see you all next week.
see you next week.